Hey guys, welcome back to more r/JustNoHOA stories. In this Reddit story, a homeowner association stole 500 acres of my ranch land. The only problem is, I'm not even part of the HOA. Let's dive right into the story. And the first one starts like this. So I own a decent-sized ranch in a pretty rural county. My grandparents bought it a long time ago and my folks kept it together by saying yes to every ugly job in town. When they passed, I took it over and I run cattle, hay, a little bit of hunting lease in the off-season, and I keep a couple sections in a conservation program to keep dunes from blowing onto our irrigation. It is home, it is work, it's not a hobby. I'm not a developer, I don't flip land, and I definitely don't join HOAs. Well, about a mile down the county road from my northern fence, some developer cut up an old farm into one of those ranch estate subdivisions. You know the kind, 5-acre luxury ranchettes that are basically tract houses with barn doors glued to the pantry. The sales flyer was laughable. Experience authentic country living, with a stock photo of a cowboy running his horse through a shallow creek. Their creek is a runoff ditch that only runs after a thunderstorm, but anyway, when they started marketing, I got the usual letters asking if I wanted to unlock my equity and sell my back parcels. Well, no thanks, but anyway, they formed an HOA. I threw the pamphlet in a drawer and didn't think about it again. I am not in their platted subdivision. My deed predates their little board by several decades and then some, and different meets and bounds, different everything, just a different world. The first time they showed up at my place, it was a couple nice-looking people with polo shirts and a clipboard. They pulled into my driveway while I was grease-caked under a baler. The woman waved like we were neighbors from way back, which was already a bad sign. "Hi, we're with the community association," she said like that meant something to me. "We have had several reports of cattle along the North Trail and we need to discuss fencing standards with you." I wiped my hands. "My cattle doesn't go on your trail. My fence is up. If you've got loose dogs, again, that's on you." She blinked. The guy with her checked his clipboard. "We are making sure all perimeter fences meet HOA height requirements. 3-rail uniform style, painted white is preferred." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "You're on my property. My fence meets the requirements of state law and common sense. I don't need your permission." Well, they tried a different tack. The woman did that tight smile. "We are trying to be friendly here. We had an incident with some ADV riders and it would really help if we could unify the fencing. So if you could provide your HOA membership number, we can put in for a partial reimbursement." "I don't have a number because I'm not in your HOA. There's a fence because this is my ranch. You see any cookie cutter houses out here?" The guy frowned at the clipboard. "Our parcel extends to the drainage easement. That easement runs along your north line. So technically you are trespassing," I said, finally standing up. "I'm going to give you 30 seconds or turn your car around. Next time you send me an email like a normal person, and if you mention easements, make sure you read your own plat. Drive safe." They left, chins high, and I thought that was the end. If only. A couple weeks later, I got a certified letter. It had a logo with an oak leaf and some cheesy font. Notice of violation. Apparently, I was in violation of Trail Access Covenant 4.1 and Architectural Harmony Covenant 2.3, and according to them, the public community trail extended across what I know, because I've walked it since I was knee-high, in my back hayfield. They had a photocopy of a map, and with a heavily shaded area, they had labeled Trail Reserve. It gobbled up a fat strip along the northern edge of my ranch and half my western boundary like a hungry Pac-Man. The letter said that I had 30 days to remove non-compliant fencing and restore access to the community trail for residents, and if I didn't, they would fine me a daily fee and seek injunctive relief. I was so stunned I laughed again, then I got mad. Not Yelp review mad, but head-off, jaw-clenched rancher mad. Because that shaded area, their so-called trail reserve, was over 500 acres of my deeded land. 500. A whole chunk, not a foot or two, not a fence line squabble. They had drawn a line across my map like a toddler with a crayon. I marched into my office, pulled the old deed from the safe, spread out the survey from when I refinanced. Then I compared their little photocopy. I recognized one reference point. A concrete culvert that's on a county ditch, everything else was a fantasy. So they had basically taken the subdivision's trail and kept going in a straight line like the world had no edges until it reached a natural berm on my side and called that their boundary. It was insane. They literally tried to steal 500 acres of my ranch property, so I called the number on the letter. The phone tree dumped me into an answering service that sounded outsourced. I left a message. Later that day, someone with the HOA finally called back, a guy with a voice like a cartoon lawyer. He said he was the board president, so he launched into a speech about how the trail was part of the amenity package, how buyers were promised unfettered access to open space, and how I was creating hardship for them. I tried to interrupt, but he talked louder. I let him run out of steam and asked where they got their claim. He said, "Our plat includes it." I said, "Send me your plat." He said, "It's on the website." I said, "I'm not a member of your HOA." "Everything with the master plan is under the HOA." I told him my ranch predates his master plan by half a century and to email me their survey if they believed otherwise. He sent over a PDF that was basically their recorded plat, and it showed the subdivision lots and, sure enough, a trail easement that looped around their neighborhood. But the map he had included in the violation letter was not the recorded plat, it was a concept plan from their marketing brochure. And there, in a faint dotted line, their vision had the trail continuing past their land onto a big swath labeled Future Open Space. In tiny print at the bottom, conceptual, subject to change. I emailed back, "Cool concept, but doesn't involve me. Don't contact me again unless you have a recorded instrument that shows you have an interest in my property." He replied with a curt, "You're non-compliant. We will be assessing fines." I told him to go ahead and assess whatever he wanted on that little spreadsheet. It didn't apply to me, and that should have been the end. But then a crew rolled up with paint and wooden stakes and started hammering markers into my hayfield. I was out on the tractor and I saw the white pickup, saw City Greenscape Contractors on the door, saw 3 guys hop out with a bundle of stakes, and they walked right past my private property sign like it was just a suggestion. I idled the tractor and waved one over. He looked nervous, like he had drawn the short straw. He showed me a work order for trail improvements with a highlighted area that again was my land. "Your boss tell you to go onto private property?" I asked. He said they were told the HOA had permission. I asked who gave it, but he named the HOA president. So I said, "Pack up, tell your boss he just sent you to trespass. If you don't leave, I will call the sheriff. I'm giving you the chance to be smarter than your boss." And then they left. 10 minutes later, my phone dinged with a voicemail. "HOA president, he said I was obstructing community development and that I would regret it and that I could either get on board or get sued into compliance." Well, that might work on someone who's never read a deed, but I was the wrong guy for that. I called my lawyer. He's a small-town attorney, knows land, knows water, and he has walked my fences with me. He made some calls and he pulled some county records. He then confirmed what I already knew. The HOA had exactly 0 recorded interest in my land, no easements, no rights. We sent a formal cease and desist, pointed out the trespass, and demanded that they confirm in writing that they would stop. They responded by posting in their HOA newsletter that a neighboring landowner is illegally blocking community access to our trail expansion and that they were working with our attorneys to resolve it. I then got emailed a screenshot by a buddy whose cousin lives in the subdivision, and they had a whole thread with neighbors calling me greedy and the reason we need strong HOAs, and one genius suggested, "Just build a fence and let him sue." Well, a week later, they did it. They hired a fence company and had them start putting up a white 3-rail fence through my pasture. And yes, not along my line, no, just through it. They set posts in a line that cut me off from my western water. It was a fresh morning. I was checking waters and I saw the auger spinning in my soil like my stomach felt. I didn't go yelling. I'm not stupid. I filmed their trucks, I filmed their faces, and I filmed the posts going in. Then I called the sheriff and I called my lawyer. The sheriff rolled up, talked to the crew, shrugged, said it was a civil matter, which is a small town deputy code for "I'm not getting in the middle without paperwork." My lawyer told me to just keep documenting. He would file for a temporary restraining order. A judge signed it, telling the HOA and its agents to stop any work on my land pending a hearing. I sent it to the HOA's email and to the fence company, and the fence company, to their credit, packed up. The HOA president called me in a fury, saying I was denying residents access to nature. I told him nature didn't need his SUV tires on it, and to tell his landscapers to pull the posts they had illegally set. But he dug in. He said their access rights were obvious. He used the word manifest like he had swallowed a law dictionary, and he said he would see me in court and that I would be paying their legal fees because I was acting in bad faith. I hung up and I thought that was the worst of it. But then I got my tax bill. In our county, agricultural land gets a special valuation. You keep cows, hay, wildlife management, whatever qualifies, and you get taxed as AG, which I suppose stands for agricultural. If your land goes non-AG use, your taxes skyrocket, and if you change use, there's a rollback where they bill you the difference for multiple years. This keeps people from holding land cheap, sitting on it, and then developing. It's a big stick. My tax bill, though, had been corrected. 500 acres were reclassified as recreational common area. And yeah guys, just to interject here, if this happened to you, and if you were in OP's shoes as a rancher/farmer, what would you have done? These HOAs are just getting crazier and crazier. And if you still enjoy these HOA stories, then please don't forget to like the video and let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. So not only was the tax rate multiplied by a number that made my eyes water, but there was a rollback calculation that I swear produced a number that made me sit down on the floor. The tax office summary said that they were informed by the HOA that those acres were part of their recorded common area and they had accepted it pending my documentation. It was a nuclear punch. If you've never seen what non-AG taxes on big acreage looks like, just imagine your mortgage payment getting multiplied by 10 and due next week. Even though I knew it was bogus and could be fixed, the timeline matters. Bureaucracy is slow, cash flow on a ranch is not endless, feed bills, VAT, the whole 9 yards, and here was the HOA trying to financially choke me into submission by telling the county that my land was theirs. So then I drove to the tax office. I'm good with the folks there, small county, you know. They pulled my file with apologetic faces. They said they had gotten a plat amendment from the HOA's management company that showed those acres shaded and labeled common area. It looked official, watermarks, a surveyor's stamp, and they said, "We asked for clarification and didn't hear from you, so we had to process what we had." I went cold when I saw it. The stamp, it didn't look right. It was a real surveyor's name, one I actually recognized, but the signature was off. Also, the legal description was a Frankenstein. It tried to splice bits of their subdivision legal into my meets and bounds, and if you know this stuff, it looked like someone copy-pasted paragraphs without understanding bearings. Angles that don't match, segments that end nowhere. I took a copy and walked out to my truck, sat there and breathed. Because this was not just some idiot board, this was fraud. You cannot file a plat amendment that affects a parcel you don't own without the owner's signature, and you sure as hell cannot stamp a surveyor's seal if the surveyor didn't do it. If they actually filed that with the county clerk, someone was going to jail. I called my lawyer and sent him the PDF. He whistled when he saw it. He called the clerk and asked if that plat amendment had been recorded. The clerk, bless her, said that they had a document in the queue that morning from the HOA's management company, but she hadn't recorded it because it looked weird. She had flagged it and was waiting for the county surveyor to review. She then emailed us a copy. The surveyor's stamp, when we zoomed in, had a pixelated halo. It was a scan pasted over the PDF. Really lazy. My lawyer called the actual surveyor whose name was on the stamp. The guy picked up and said he hadn't done any such plat, and he was furious. He said he would be filing a complaint. My lawyer asked him to write a statement, which he did within the hour. On letterhead with his license number, we sent that to the clerk and the tax office. That should have been the nail in the coffin, but it wasn't. The HOA actually doubled down. Their management company sent a letter saying that we were misinterpreting and that the common area designation was adopted by the HOA board under its bylaws, as if they could wave a hand and annex land with a vote. They said they would notify residents of the obstruction. That weekend, some idiot cut my fence on the north side and a handful of ATVs tore tracks through my hay. I know the difference between a coyote slipping through and a side-by-side full of drunk dads. They left beer cans and actually zip-tied a laminated trail open sign to my corner post. I called the sheriff again, but he shrugged again. "It is hard to catch them unless we see it," he said, and he said he would increase patrols. I filled the cuts, set a game camera, and added a strand of hot wire. I started a paper trail like my life depended on it. Every fence repair, every call, every screenshot from their Facebook group with someone bragging about ripping it up on the open space. I made a folder labeled HOA Fun, and I put everything in it. I recorded every time I heard, "We will see you in court," and then I got served. The HOA filed a lawsuit for declaratory judgment that they had implied easement over my land based on historic use and that my fence was a nuisance. They also wanted the court to quiet title to the 500 acres as their common area, thereby essentially stealing my 500 acres of land. The audacity of that filing was impressive. The petition was a fever dream of legal buzzwords. So they claimed the subdivision was planned with the expectation of open space and that the developer relied on access and that I had stood by silently while they improved the land. Remember those 4 fence posts they had set before we got the TRO? Those were their so-called improvements. They attached affidavits from a couple residents claiming they had walked their dogs on the trail, which was my pasture, before the fence was upgraded as proof of historic use. We of course countersued trespass. Also for slander of title, fraud, defamation and so on, we added the management company, and once my lawyer pulled some strings and found out who had sent the plat amendment, we added the individual manager and the HOA president personally. We asked for injunctive relief, damages for the damage to my field, punitive damages for the fraud, and attorney fees. My attorney is a pleasant guy with a gentle voice. I'd never see him load a pleading with that much fire. He said dry as dust, "They wanted a court? Let's give them some court." The first hearing was on the injunction. The HOA lawyer showed up in a suit that screamed suburban corporate, tried to hide the stink of overconfidence. He argued we were overreacting, he called the plat amendment a draft, and he said any trespass was a misunderstanding. The judge asked one question, "Do you have any recorded right that touches this man's land?" And the HOA lawyer stammered. "We have a concept plan," he said, and you could hear the air go out of his voice as he said it. The judge extended the TRO into a temporary injunction. That meant they could not set foot on my land without court permission, and she looked over her glasses at the HOA president and said, "If your people go out there again, I will hold you in contempt." He looked smaller walking out than he did walking in. The injunction bought some time, which is what I needed, because revenge is not about throwing one punch, it is about pressure. I started with the county. I met with a county attorney. I brought a binder with tabs. I sat across from them and slid the plat amendment across, the surveyor's statement, the tax office correction, the screenshots of HOA posts saying they were opening the trail, the work orders, just everything. The county attorney's eyebrows climbed up when he saw the stamp. "You sure you want to push this?" he asked. "Because if we go criminal, it's gonna get ugly." I told him that they had tried to hit me with a tax reclassification to force me to sell or submit. The ugly already happened. So he nodded. The county brought in the district attorney. They took statements. An investigator was sent to the management company, but I didn't stop there. I filed a complaint with the state surveyor's board for misuse of a seal. I filed a complaint with the State Real Estate Commission about the developer and their HOA's management for deceptive practices. I filed with the Consumer Protection Division about the HOA falsely representing common area on land they did not even own. I was polite, factual, calm in every complaint. I stapled exhibits. I learned that bureaucrats appreciate clean copies and numbered pages. If you want the machine to move, you grease it with legible evidence. While the government wheels started to turn, I applied pressure socially too. I called a reporter at the regional paper who did a series a while back on rural land disputes. I offered facts and documents. No rancor, just here's what happens, here's what they filed, here's how they tried to shift my taxes, and here is the surveyor's statement. She perked up at fraudulent plat and she asked for permission to pull filings. I said everything was public. She asked if she could talk to neighbors. I said she could talk to whoever, and she asked if she could quote me, and I asked to read my quotes before publication to make sure they were accurate, and then I gave her the bland truth, like a gallon of cold milk. No crazy adjectives, no slander, just I'm not part of the HOA, my land is my land, and they attempted to claim it and got caught. Also, I had a petty streak. I went through the HOA's governing documents their board had publicly posted and found a clause that required a supermajority of members to approve any action that would materially impact assessments or create liabilities exceeding a certain threshold. Every time the HOA posted some chest-thumping update about defending our trail, I made sure someone quietly printed that clause and slid it under doors. The subdivision, sleek like Hollanders, one of their own sent me a scan of a board meeting minute boasting about how much they had spent on this fight. The number had 2 commas. Their insurer was not gonna like that. When the article hit the paper, it was like flipping a switch. The headline was not sensational, but it cut something like, "Subdivision HOA accused of filing fraudulent plat to claim neighbor's ranch land." The text laid it out. The surveyor was quoted calling it a gross misuse of his stamp. The county clerk said it was never recorded because it appeared defective. The tax office said they were reversing the reclassification and that they were reviewing documents. There was a photo of me with my arms crossed next to my battered fence and a caption pointing out that I was not part of the HOA. And by the way, guys, just to quickly interject here, I had an amazing idea. I feel like a t-shirt with the caption, "I'm not part of the HOA," would be absolutely amazing. Then again, I'm usually not the person to sell merch or anything, but I feel like that would be merch that is adequate for my channel. Anyway, there was also a screenshot of a post from the HOA newsletter accusing me of illegally blocking residents. The reporter contrasted that with the injunction. The HOA blasted a response accusing the paper of bias, said that they were victims of a smear campaign by a hostile landowner and that facts would come out in court. The residents were not unified though. The same day, one of them emailed me anonymously with copies of emails from the management company to the board where they admitted the plat amendment was aggressive but worth a shot, and they discussed tax leverage. Reading those phrases with their names at the bottom made me see red all over again. We amended our lawsuit to include that email. It's one thing to be stupid, but it's another to write your stupidity down. But then came my favorite part. So the HOA kept insisting on fence uniformity and trail access as shown on the concept plan. They sent letters telling me to remove non-compliant fencing and signage interfering with community aesthetics, so I complied to the letter. I put up fencing that complied with exactly what their subdivision specifications required on their side of the line. I hired a licensed contractor to build a fence right along the actual surveyed boundary. Not just any fence though, I found the most HOA-approved fence spec in their documents, white 3-rail vinyl. The stuff that warps in the sun. Their covenants required specific height, paint color and spacing, so I built mine just a hair on my side, compliant to their spec. Then, on my side of that fence, I set my normal wire with T-posts where I actually needed to control cattle. The result was that from their view, they saw their dream fence. From my side though, I saw my functional fence. And I posted my property with signage exactly like theirs allowed. Discreet black metal 3-inch letters, no trespassing, private property, and I even used their approved font. I sent them a letter with photos. As requested, I've installed fencing consistent with your community standards visible from your site. The subtext was clear: you don't control what's behind it. They had been arguing architectural harmony, and they got it. And in complying, I made it harder for their ATVs to slip through because the vinyl fence couldn't easily be lifted like wire, and residents started complaining. "Why is there an ugly ranch fence behind our pretty fence?" The board replied, "We're working on it." My letter, when the court saw it, made the judge raise an eyebrow and smirk. "That is creative," she said. My lawyer smiled and said, "We aim to please." Meanwhile, the DA's investigator paid a visit to the management company. He got a copy of the original file where the intern had literally scanned the surveyor's stamp from an unrelated document and pasted it on the conceptual plat. The intern, bless their hearts, saved the Photoshop file. It had layers labeled stamp, signature and shade, and they interviewed the HOA president. He lawyered up and then, through his lawyer, tried to distance himself from all of this. He blamed the management company. The management company tried to blame the surveyor for miscommunications, and the surveyor was not amused. Criminal charges started brewing for tampering with a governmental record and misuse of a professional seal. In my state, both are felonies, and the DA played it straight. No comments, but word got out. The HOA board started to fracture. One of them resigned with a passive-aggressive email to the whole neighborhood about differences in leadership. Another posted a long Facebook screed about toxic negativity, and meanwhile my lawyer scheduled depositions. If you've never sat for a deposition, imagine a dentist appointment where the drills run on truth instead of electricity. The HOA president showed up in a blue suit that fit like a sales pitch. He smirked a lot. That stopped when my lawyer slid a printed copy of the emails onto the table, the ones where he said, "Even if we cannot record it, we can get the tax office to ding him and squeeze him." He swallowed and stared at his lawyer. His lawyer asked for a recess. When we came back, he suddenly couldn't remember anything. "I don't recall," became his favorite phrase, but it didn't matter. The emails were their own witnesses. We deposed the management company rep who had sent the plat, and he tried the "I'm not a surveyor" defense. My lawyer asked, "Did you affix a professional surveyor seal to a document you knew the surveyor had not prepared?" He stammered, "We were told to make it match the concept." "Told by whom?" The board. Which member? He looked at the HOA president. Their lawyer objected. The court reporter typed like she was doing 10 rounds on a speed bag. The HOA's legal team started bleeding. I noticed because I read their invoices when they accidentally filed them unredacted in the county record. They were paying hourly for a dumb. They had multiple associates attend a 15-minute status conference. The residents started showing up to board meetings with questions about assessments, about insurance, and about why their premiums were going up. The board started holding meetings in executive session and shutting out the members. Well, that never calms anyone. Somebody leaked the insurance letter. Their D&O carrier was reserving rights, hinting that misrepresentation and fraud were not covered. Translation: the board members might be on the hook personally. The HOA's PR attempt backfired again. They hosted a community walk up to the edge of my fence to appreciate our open space. 50 people and their labradoodles assembled and trudged up, taking selfies with the vinyl fans. I just sat on my side in a lawn chair with a lemonade, just visible but not friendly. Someone yelled, "When can we get through?" I called through the fence, "Ask your board to buy it. Market rate plus my attorney fees." Someone laughed, someone else called me names, and the HOA president did a little fist bump and said, "Soon," like he could will it. Another resident whispered to a friend, "We're gonna get sued." I think that was the first time some of them understood the bill they were gonna pay. Then the criminal complaints became charges. The DA indicted the management company rep for tampering with a governmental record and misuse of seal, and indicted the HOA president for solicitation of the same. Seeing that in black and white felt better than whiskey on a cold night. The HOA president posted a statement about innocent until proven guilty and politically motivated. He stepped down temporarily from the board to focus on family, which is HOA speak for lawyer up. The management company issued a press release blaming a rogue employee who, based on the Photoshop file, was an intern named something adorable like Cody. Cody lawyered up too. For the civil case, discovery sank hooks even deeper. We found out that the HOA had paid the fence company a deposit from reserves without a proper vote. We found out that the board had been meeting in a WhatsApp chat and making decisions with 3 people when the bylaws required 5. We also found out that the developer had quietly encouraged this because they were trying to keep their sales pitch of miles of trails alive long enough to sell the last lots. The developer tried to claim they had nothing to do with the board. However, the emails showed otherwise. They had drafted the newsletter language calling me hostile, and my lawyer added the developers LLC to the civil suit, and suddenly real money was in play. The big city council showed up for the developer and immediately tried to settle with that oily charm of someone used to writing checks to make messes go away. They offered to license my land for trail use for a nominal fee. I told them no amount of nominal would undo the last year. They offered to buy an easement and I told them my price would include a public apology and resignations. They balked and I said, "See you at trial." We were not bluffing. My lawyer grinned after the call and said, "They think you want money. It is adorable." I did want money, but I wanted something else more, which was consequences. The judge set us for mediation before trial, as is standard. We walked into a neutral office with free coffee and a mediator who had done 1,000 neighbor fights. He did the usual shuttle between rooms. The HOA side started defensive. They would reduce the trail, put up signs, pay a little for the damage, and agree to disagree on the boundary. We slid across a proposal. They sign a quitclaim deed disclaiming any interest in my property, and they publicly acknowledge they were wrong. They pay for all my attorney's fees, they fund a scholarship at the local AG program in my family's name as a token of goodwill, and the HOA president, management rep, and the developer rep each record a video message to be posted in the HOA forum apologizing for the misinformation. Also, the HOA must adopt a resolution. No actions regarding property outside the subdivision will be taken without written legal counsel verification of recorded rights. The developer's lawyer laughed. The mediator went pale. The HOA president went red. "Never," he said. We pushed our chairs back. "See you at trial then." A funny thing about trials in small counties, when there's a case with a hint of drama, people come. On the day off, the gallery had ranchers, subdivision residents, and that reporter with a notebook. We didn't get to a jury verdict though. Mid-morning after my lawyer finished his opening and before the HOA could start parading their historic used dog walkers, the developer's lawyer asked for a recess and then asked to approach. Off the record, he said they would like to talk settlement again. He had just watched a video my lawyer planned to play where the management rep bragged on a recorded board Zoom that the county is too dumb to catch a fake plat if the seal looks official. The developer had just realized that they were in bed with fools. We went back to the mediation table at lunch, and this time their tone was different. The developer offered to front the settlement to stop the bleed, and we kept our terms though. We shaved nothing, they offered more money. We did not want more money until the other conditions were met. We wanted the apology, the quitclaim, the resolution change. They hemmed, hawed and huddled, but the HOA president said he would rather rot than apologize, and the developer's lawyer put his hand on the president's forearm and whispered, "You will apologize." The president stared at the table for a long time and then said something under his breath that I won't repeat and nodded once. We signed a settlement that afternoon. It included a quitclaim deed recorded from the HOA to me for any and all interests real or imagined in my property, particularly the disputed 500 acres with language acknowledging they had no legal claim in the first place, a permanent injunction against the HOA, its members, agents and anyone acting under their direction from entering my land without my express written permission, enforceable by contempt. Also payment of all my attorney's fees and costs, which by then were a mountainous stack, plus damages for my field repairs and a not insignificant punitive component for slander of title. A binding commitment by the HOA to adopt a bylaw change requiring independent legal opinion and a full member vote before initiating any litigation or recording document affecting property outside the subdivision with a 2/3 threshold. Also a cap on legal spending without member approval. Further, a donation by the developer of a fund to the local AG program in the name of my grandparents, which made me smile more than I expected, because they would have gotten a kick out of it. A stipulation that any violation of the injunction would trigger liquidated damages at a rate high enough to make anyone sneeze. The developer rapped at the corporate penance, "We will be reviewing our processes." Translation, we will fire an intern and then keep doing what we do, but the community saw it. The neighbors sent me messages, some contrite, some still salty, and a few said sorry for the ATVs. One dropped off cash for the hay they ruined, which I refused and instead said to donate to the school fund, and they did. After the settlement payment cleared, I did something that made my wife grin. I replaced the vinyl fence along the line with a better wire fence on my side and left the vinyl on their side because maintenance is their problem now. In the settlement, the HOA agreed to maintain any aesthetic improvements along the boundary visible to their side, so when the vinyl starts to warp in the summer, when the weeds grow under it, and when it mildews in the spring, they get to hire someone to power wash it. Essentially, they get the look they wanted, I get my fence and my land, and the criminal cases went forward. The management rep pled to a lesser charge of attempted tampering and took probation, a fine, and a statement to the surveyor's board conceding that he had misused the seal. The HOA president went to trial. The jury didn't buy his, routine, not with the email about tax leverage. He got convicted of solicitation of tampering and received a sentence that included community service and a fine big enough to make a grown man sell his second SUV. He also got barred from serving on any HOA board for a period. The HOA tried to act like he was a bad apple. The apple had been in charge of the orchard though, and insurance dropped them. Their premiums doubled, the HOA had to do a special assessment to cover the gap, and people were livid. The board got voted out wholesale. A new board came in, a bunch of tired-looking folks who just wanted to argue about pool hours, and their first act was to post a message saying, "We will not be engaging in any external property disputes." Someone commented, "Lesson learned." What about the tax office? They reversed the reclassification. It made me feel better, but not as good as the documented reversal of their record where they explicitly noted, "Erroneous third-party representation, owner of record confirmed agricultural use." The clerk revised their procedures to require direct owner confirmation for any changes to a large acreage classifications, which was a system-level win. I installed a couple gates on the north line that sit behind my fence, locked with authorized access only. Why, you're asking? Because I sometimes let the local volunteer fire department cut across when there's a grass fire, and minutes matter. Not for the subdivision, not for the HOA, but for my neighbors who don't try to steal my land. And the next one is a funny, petty neighbor revenge story. It is titled, "Taking Out the Trash." So for context, I cannot stand my neighbor, he's just a terrible person. My neighbor on the opposite side, who I'm friends with, is getting some excavation work done in his yard, and the crew dropped off their equipment Sunday night on our street. In front of the mean neighbor, they parked the truck and trailer carrying the backhoe, and they were probably a good 15 feet back from his driveway. A minor and temporary inconvenience for most people, not possessed by the spirit of Satan, but I knew he was gonna get pissed about it. He hates anything being parked in front of his house, even though it's a public street. Well, the excavation was a 2-day job, so they were noticeably finishing up this afternoon when mean neighbor put out his trash cans. Tomorrow is trash day, and he put them so close to the front of the workers' truck, they will have to reverse the trailer in order to pull away from the curb and not hit the cans. He then got in his car and backed out of his driveway. He saw the workers and couldn't resist the compulsion to roll down his window and bark at them about, "When are you gonna move that big ugly thing from in front of my house?" A worker patiently responded, "We are finishing up now, sir," and mean neighbor drove off. Well, then I quickly walked outside and went over to the worker. I said, "You know, as close as those trash cans are to your truck, I don't think the trash truck will be able to reach them, and they will probably skip his collection. It would be just terrible if you guys let the trailer sit there one more night." The guy cracked a sly smile as I bid him goodnight. It's late evening here now, and the trailer is still sitting out there. The neighbor is fuming. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the long stories, please don't forget to check out my endless playlist on the left. Otherwise, I will see you again tomorrow.